Good morning. Welcome to this practice builder session as your starter. I'll be running this today with just a second. Myself and Jan Joffre is going to be chipping in on the some of the sessions that we've got running through today as well. So my role, I'm the Azure Business Manager here at TD SYNNEX UK. So it's my job to educate, inform, update partners and our co-workers within the business on all the wonderfulness that is Azure, keep on top of the programs and, develop content like we're going through here today. So if you ever need anything, please, do reach out. I think I've banged into some of you before, and if not, I'm only an email away.
I'm sure I recognise the name of the face. So.
Well, I've been here probably in this role about 6 months, 3 years in CSP, and then an additional 15 years before that at Tech Data, Interface, ISI, ASLAN, all the rest of that. So quite a long tenure in this business, but no chance of me leaving anytime soon. This is the right place to be. Jan, do you want to just do a quick intro to yourself as well, sir?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, I didn't want to brag. I'm based in Barcelona. I didn't want to talk about the weather. So, but apart from that, Jan Joffre, I've been working in this organization for 3 years. Gosh, time flies. And right now, part of the global team here. True pleasure to be part of this call. And to thank you, David, for bringing me to the audience here. And in my past experience, worked in MSPs for more than 10 years, owned my own company for the past 5. So really excited to be talking to all of you.
Cool, thanks for that, Jan. And I'll just skip to so here's the agenda. So this is what we're going to be covering today. Obviously, we've done the intros. There's going to be a little quick form in a moment that I would appreciate you filling in, but I'll get to that in a second. I'm going to be going through what a practice builder is, what we actually here for today, and what the program looks like. Jan's going to be covering off the market dynamic portion of today, and then we'll look through the partner opportunity in Azure as it stands. Then we'll have a break. I'm then going to go through a couple of sort of ideal, let's say, case studies, but at a partner level, kind of a customer journey of what creating a practice in Azure can look like for a partner, some recipes for success off the back of that, and then incentives and programs, and then obviously what we bring to the party to finish off the session. So with that in mind, I do want, by all means, I'm happy for this to be an interactive session. As long as we can get through most of the content, that's okay. But if anybody's got any questions as we go along, take yourself off mute, ask away. I'd rather that we talk some of these things through, especially if it's not clear, because because otherwise I don't want people to suffer in silence. We've got a lot to potentially cover off, but we will be following up off the back of this anyway. So you don't have to get every single thing down in this one session. So first off, it would help us to understand where you guys are coming from, and help us to shape future sessions as well. That is a genuine 1 minute to complete form. There's a 3 or 4 questions max on this, just to get a bit of a snapshot as to what the attendees are on this session. So if you want to grab that QR now and complete that form, that would be fantastic. I'm not going to just wait while everybody does that though, so I will still move on. So Cloud Practice Builder, what is it? So Cloud Practice Builder is our methodology to support our partner community in developing a particular element of cloud strategy. So this is running on Azure. I've aimed this at a starter level, and what I mean by a starter level is somebody who's either net new to Azure, so you're probably working with us on modern work products. You might be a wizard on that, but you've not really dabbled with Azure, or it could be you've got a couple of bits in Azure, but you've never really actually planned that out, not sure exactly where to go or what to do or what others are doing. So that's where I've pitched this. So if it's a bit low level for some, apologies. We have an advanced session coming up as well, which will go into a bit more detail. And we do this, the Practice Builder runs through several sessions. We have the leadership session, we have a sales session, technical session, and then a go-to-market offering as well, which kind of covers all of the different practices that we might be talking about. We won't have a specific Azure go-to-market session because it's 99% the same as what you would do with anything else. So you may have completed this assessment. This is something that we sent out upon invite, and this is a cloud assessment that we have that we built custom just for this program. Again, that gives us more insight, a bit more than the form that we had before, and it kind of red, amber, greens where you are in your journey, what the kind of focus areas will be. Very handy for a follow-up session after this call if we want to book that in. We'll have a look at that, dig into a bit more detail, and then generate a customized plan. Not using ChatGPT, I might add, or AI. This is using me, the team, your account manager, and so on to come up with a plan that fits what, you know, where you are in your journey now on a particular cloud. To back that up as well, we have content on our Channel Academy, which is our free learning portal. It's an offshoot from InTouch, if you're familiar with our InTouch platform. And basically, this is all content we've created. The best thing to support our channel, the practice build, is probably some of the cloud economics stuff that we've done on there, which is really quite useful. So by all means, you can check that out after this session. We will be sending you copies of all the slides as well, so you will have all the links and everything. And we also have some on-demand content as well, with podcasts and market analysis on AVD and so on and so forth. These are all available through our channels online. I'd recommend that you, if you've not already joined our LinkedIn group as well, we have a CSP LinkedIn group. That would be a good place to go as well for any of our recent updates and information. Yeah, so as I said, the starter track, we have the leadership session, which is today. Then we have a sales session, which is actually on the 20th of April. I'll come back to that. We have the pre-sales technical session this Friday. And then we have a marketing session, which I think I've taken a too early slide because it doesn't have the date on there. I'll make a note of changing that. That is later in April. I'll send the details over. The reason why the sales session is out of sync is that what I generally find with the sales element for Azure is that that's normally aimed at, you know, as you might imagine, a traditional sales team and sales function. With Azure specifically, I don't always find that the sales process within the business on Azure actually follows that path, because it's generally driven from the leadership team down, with pre-sales support and technical support to do the scoping and delivering the message. So I've plonked the same sales session for both the starter and the advanced track. So it's the same messaging to either engage a net new sales team or get more buy-in from an existing sales team who might be more familiar with hardware sales or whatever it is that your core business is. But it's still a great session, and it will be running on the 20th of April. Okay, and then after all this, what we'll also be doing is we'll invite everybody that's attended the leadership sessions to a one-to-one partner session as well. So I'll be running those with everybody that's on this call, unless you decide you've had enough. And then we will go through what it is you took from the session, what areas we want to work with you on or you want from us, and fill in any blanks that you might have had. It's normally an hour-long session, but obviously one-to-one, we can get a lot done in that time. And that's the extended calendar as well. It still doesn't have the marketing times on there. So we also have other tracks that you might have been familiar with. So we've got the two for Azure this half. We've got unified communications, which covers off Teams and Teams voice, and then the security session, which ran the other day for the leadership session. We have sales and technicals on that. So the security track is quite a good one. I have a lot of overlap with my partners on that because we have a separate Azure technical session which covers off, you know, how to protect yourself from fraud, Defender for Cloud, Sentinel, these kind of products. But the overall security message from a leadership point of view is pretty much the same. You wouldn't be secure in one cloud or Microsoft M365 and then go, I'll be secure over here, but I'll forget about the rest. kind of goes hand in hand. Otherwise, you're just opening one door, locking one and opening the other. So that's a good session. Again, all of this content is available on demand afterwards as well. So if you think you've missed something, you can grab that after. Okay, that's me for a bit. So I don't know if there's any questions before we go on to Jan's bit. If there is, shout them out. I'll put them in the chat. And if not, we'll go on to Jan. So Jan, were you going to share? Fine, I'll stop my screen.
Let me see if I'm. Please, David, tell me if I'm doing it right. Just in case.
I can see your page. That's fine.
Brilliant. Then let's get started. By the way, thank you for answering the questionnaires. Again, and as promised, average time to completion was 58 seconds, so we nailed it there. And we see that we've got several of you that know the basics but want to know more, and many of you are familiar with on-prem infrastructure and also are pretty familiar with technical stuff. Typo included in the survey. Apologies for that. Now, in this regard, when we let's say discuss about cloud, we will cover some of the elements that you seem to be interested in when we discuss about the market dynamics. David, you know that I'm from Barcelona and I tend to talk a lot. If I need to speed up, you just tell me. All right?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'll say less and slow down.
Now, getting started, we will start with, let's say, things that probably you are already familiar with, things that hopefully you have been experiencing yourselves, right? And probably this will be one of the busiest slides, so it will get easier moving forward. But in short, what it sort of we want to communicate to you and what we want to, let's say, align on is that definitely, at least what we see, is that vendors keep chucking technology at a tremendous speed. We just recently heard about Copilot from Microsoft. We also heard about lots of AI related innovations, as David was even joking a few minutes ago. And at each Inspire event, gosh, the book of news gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And we also see that, let's say, lots of customers get used to these consumption dynamics. That it looks like it's easier for them to try a new technology without that much risk. And also lots of new IT buyers, right? I think that it was IDC who stated that more than 60% of the IT budget comes from non-IT buyers, which definitely is a challenge for most of us who have been used to deal with the CIOs, the IT managers, and the sorts. And obviously, all those changes and challenges, let's say, put some pressure into our talent engines. And at least that's what we sort of kept feeling and sensing from many of you. And how does these macro trends also affect in our business models, right? As you see, many of your sales partners and partner organizations start to shift as a consequence towards as a service business models, incorporating not solely the products, but also your offerings in this modality. Then, of course, this requires quite a dedicated skill set. And as we said, it puts some pressure in your talent engines. And I think that these last two go hand in hand, right? First, there's no more, let's say, should we migrate or not? Migration, it's just, let's say, the tip of the iceberg for your transformation strategy. And not only yours, also your customers, right? So migrating to the cloud enables a whole new horizon of possibilities and whole new horizon of, let's say, tech capabilities that your customers want to step into, and that hopefully you can be at the forefront of their transformation, right? And by the way, and the last trend that we wanted to highlight, although there might be quite a trend towards cloud migration, it's not, let's say, get rid of all, right? It's hybrid is here to stay. So for all those of you that feel comfortable and have lots of expertise in infrastructure, these will be very much needed. And for the cloud natives, they are lacking that, so you can use that to your advantage. Now, this is how we've been doing business for ages, right? And people keep telling that the data center is dying, and I totally confront that saying, by the way, in full transparency, right? And that's how we have been doing business for a while. So making money out of, let's say, corporate assets, being those like, as we see here, the hardware, the licensing, the even data center in itself and co-location, and the whatever networking environment that we have. And I like to call virtual machines pets, because we usually don't know, we are no vets, right? We are no veterinaries, right? And we sort of feed them with resources, we provide them, we take care of them. And when something happens to them, we really sort of are preoccupied, right? However, as said, we are not, let's say, veterinarians, right? And in these regards, we see that some of the, let's say, partners keep focusing on elements that are not relevant to customers. And don't get me wrong, I know that price is relevant for everyone, right? But I consider price to be an hygiene factor. I don't know about your budget and your pockets, but I cannot afford a Porsche, right? And if I'm looking for cars, definitely Porsche will not be, let's say, within my scope, right? But let's say there's a certain price range in which I feel comfortable with, right? And I will further look at, for example, what capabilities is this car providing me? Is it giving me, I don't know, enough space for me and my family? Is it giving me enough horsepower so I can feel, let's say, the car when I'm driving? Is it giving me whatever that is, right? And I would consider all these, let's say, outcome-related features much more than just the price. And also service and proximity act alike, right? And what I want, let's say, us to start focusing on is, rather than focusing on asset related components, start focusing on the ones that drive value, right? So is it agility? Is it availability, automation, or simplification? And all of those items and outcome-based conversations are the ones that really get us moving forward, right? And when we, let's say, ask yourselves and ask for even ourselves, if we are not talking about them, then we might be doing something wrong. And allow me to say that if we are focusing, if we cannot answer to these questions that you have on top of this slide, so how do we govern and operate across all these environments? How do we best enable innovation? How do we make sure that security, as David was saying, is not, let's say, a project? It's a complete important part of our strategy. And how do we make sure that we take all of that, let's say, and we make sure that we support the technical hurdles of our customers, not only in those two boxes in there, but in the complete IT estate of our customers? If we cannot answer to those questions, boy, we are missing on a big opportunity. And in these regards, that's what we want, let's say, to focus on. How do we use cloud as an opportunity for you to expand your business and as an opportunity for you to support your customers in this transformation journey?
Dave, did you have a question then? I accidentally flagged the raise hand.
Just a misclick.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Now, after talking to some partners just as yourselves, right? Obviously, the shift towards cloud and the shift towards all these exciting innovation can create also some tension in your organizations, right? And it's sometimes easier said than done, the cloud migration. And that's why we also heard from partners such as yourselves that you require at least support, or not support, but probably true partnership, right, in those four areas, being those like, how do we equip our organizations with the right skills, right? How do we make sure that we drive these technology innovations for our customers, solving for their challenges? How do we deliver these at scale? And more importantly, how do we make sure that we evolve our businesses to, let's say, incorporate all of those, let's say, solutions into our portfolio, and that we help our customers evolve with us? Now, to all those challenges and to all these, let's say, situations, we have seen two different reactions. And one of my objectives for today is for you to be the later, not this one that we have on screen. Because probably the easiest thing to say is, who here in this call has ever, for example, provided high-value consultancy services for securing a deal? And by the way, I'm the first at being guilty here, right? So yeah, I think that we all did that, right? At least once. Who has offered lower prices for securing a deal as well? Guilty as charged, right? And one of the things that, let's say, if we keep down that road, it's a race to zero, a race to the bottom, right? And what really the ones that are changing the game are doing is just, and I know that it probably sounds as a topic, but focusing on the customer. What is the customer obsessed about, right? And some of the takeaways are really starting to sort of get specialized, get yourself specialized, get yourself in the front of what are the challenges that your customers are facing and how can we solve them? How can we do that without huge investments and in an as a service modality? Because it will take away some of their perceived risk when adopting new technology. And by the way, how can they do that while feeling your unique sauce, right? Your unique IP. How can they do, for example, Azure your way? Not Azure, let's say, by the kilogram or by the pound, as I also like to say. So Azure in your unique way. And in order to do that, the first thing that we need to start like getting obsessed about and mad about is instead of looking at Azure as, let's say, a black box with more than 200 or 300 services, gosh, I lost count, right? It's, can we start looking at Azure at how can it deliver value to my customers? Can we find use cases for Azure and segmenting the Azure products depending on what can I use them for, right? And if you are experts in data center, for example, a brilliant way on doing so would be landing zones in Azure, right? How can I land in Azure in the way that you and only you can provide to your customers? So if it is a pharmaceutical company, can I apply Azure policy to make sure that they stay compliant with good manufacturing processes, with HIPAA or with SOX, with whatever regulatory environment that they are embedded in? And it's just in a couple of clicks, right? If they need to monitor, can they utilize Azure native tools? So it is easier. They don't need that much integration between vendors and configuration and etc. Can we apply budgets and cost control to make sure that the cost is way more predictable than they might fear when migrating to cloud? All of that can be your unique sauce when designing your Azure infrastructure environment. And by the way, I kept talking about infrastructure, but it can also be data and analytics, security, data protection, you name it. Start envisioning, let's say, the use cases that your customers might be thinking on. Now, if we were to sell a burger, I don't know anybody, honestly speaking, that would sell a burger in the, just looking at the example that we've got on the left side, right? I actually don't know any burger company that is trying to sort of position first the lettuce, second the onions, third the burger in itself, the meat, etc., and provide you with a quotation. Our suggestion here is try to make it easier for your customer. We know cloud can be complex. Demystify it for them. Provide them with the outcome directly. You want a burger, not a salad and all the ingredients one by one. And in doing so, it's easier to just attach the Coke, just attach the chips. My God, I'm getting hungry. But and in these regards, what we try to suggest in here is make it easy for your customers and just showing an example. It can be done. This is Azure Virtual Desktop. And for implementing Azure Virtual Desktop, certainly it will depend on the type of user. It will depend on the authentication method. It will depend on, let's say, the applications that the customer is using, but make it easy for them, right? Try and bundle all the components that are required, even Azure Firewall policy, all the sorts that I try to sort of just drop at your hands a few seconds ago. Try to put them in a comprehensive way for your customers so they feel how would they do Azure with you? And not just a bunch of SKUs that are impossible to understand and impossible to read. When we read at the BM specs, they really give you headaches, right? So, but more importantly, what will they get in doing so, right? And how much more efficient will they be? How much more automated their operations will they become? And more importantly, how much more resilient and how much more, let's say, how much tech debt will they retire in doing so? Now, I think that was my last slide, but allow me to just provide you with, let's say, how are we trying to support you in creating this. I hate the word bundle because it's not a bundle. It's more a value proposition, right? How can we provide these unique packages of value to your customers? And we have a digital tool to capture what could be your strategy, what could be your, let's say, Azure bundle or Azure package delivered to your customer. How could you play with your financials to do so? How can you, let's say, capture the information from the Azure calculator, attach your services, your managed services, whatever IP that you are considering including it in this bundle, and making sure that these can be repeatedly delivered to your customers and can be repeatedly delivering profit to your own organizations. So stay tuned, because we will provide you with access to this tool set, and this tool set keeps evolving, is a SaaS of ours, and it will anytime soon also provide you with business insights. So hopefully this will still be relevant not only during this training but also moving forward. Now, my final example in here. This is a real life example in which a teacher of mine once said that he wants for.
Just to say, Jan, Dave wasn't seeing any slides. Is everybody else seeing slides? I would have thought somebody else would have.
Yes, I'm seeing slides. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Dave.
God, I got a little bit scared because I said, if I need to repeat, these individuals don't deserve that. So,
I mean, Dave, the only thing I can suggest is if you just drop out and then rejoin. What was the last slide you saw?
And don't worry, I won't start over.
Let me just leave and come back. One sec.
Okay.
No problem. Right. Thank you for that, David. So
I just hope you got the burger. As long as you saw the burger slide.
Now the last one, and I promise is the last one. A teacher of mine once said, I want all my customers to be the no-brainer. I want to become the no-brainer option to all my customers. And it actually happens to me. So when I think of my barber, I actually call him my barber, as if I own the company, right? And I don't know when I will get my next haircut, but I know where. Right. And I want for all my customers to think exactly the same. I don't know when I will have my next challenge with IT, but I know with whom am I going to solve it. Right. And that's precisely. And usually in the barber shop, you don't care if the salon looks fancier or not, or if they have improved the lighting or not. What you care is that they know what you want. And that, for example, for me, my hair will never be blue. Right. And it will never be too much long, right? But my barber already knows that, and they probably don't even need to ask. And that's exactly what we would love for your customers feel when they engage with you and your way on doing cloud. Now, that was all from me. If there's any questions, please keep them coming. Happy to take them. And I give you back David, who knows way more about Azure than myself.
You're too kind, sir. You're too kind. Right, I'll share now. Thanks very much, Jan. Right. Okay. So unfortunately, Dave, I don't think he's still going to be getting any of the slides. So I don't know if you can. Is everybody okay? Can they see the partner opportunity in Azure slide now?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if this is useful information or not, but just looking at the participants, all of us seem to be external, apart from David, who's somehow come in as a meeting guest. Don't know if that makes a difference, but that might be why the slides aren't there.
Interesting.
Yeah, let me see if I can get it to sign me back in properly.
Right.
Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, so just to tag on onto the back of what Jan was saying there, everything you sell in Azure doesn't have to be a bundle. You know, I would suggest that is the goal that some partners have reached with some services. Not all, and not all partners by a long shot. But you could just as easily as bundle up the package of Azure as a business outcome as adding your value wrap onto just selling Azure. So instead of having, here's your consumption for this, here's the storage cost, here's this, here's that part, and then on top of that, you then add your own bits and bobs on as well as all individual elements. The more you can consolidate all those bits, so it could just be that you have your own pre-regimented Azure management offering. So you've got consumption through Azure of whatever that is, with a margin on, however you want to do it. And then you have, you know, what I see often would be like bronze, silver, gold. So you're doing something on that for your customer based on a cost either per VM or based on the revenue or a prefix package, however you want to work that out. And then within those bundles, let's say, you have a different set of criteria as to how you manage that estate. Could just be simple management and patching, or it might be that you've got you know, optimization reports every month and a quarterly review, and you're doing, you know, the utmost to manage that estate, add new value on, constantly looking at it, increasing the support on it, that kind of thing. The more you condense things down, the easier it is to sell, the stickier you are with your customer, and the less they start talking about the price of the lettuce. Because believe it or not, that does come up. You know, this thing was 10p more here, and that was £1.50 less last month, and this kills your time, kills our time, going around in circles trying to work out why the lettuce cost half a p difference start of the year versus today. It's so far away from the point. It's not funny. So, right. Hopefully, Dave is now back on. Brilliant, fantastic. Okay, so the partner opportunity in Azure. So there's going to be a little bit of an overlap with some of the stuff that Jan went through, but hopefully not too much. So Azure, yeah, hundreds of services, possibly two. You know, it seems very daunting to get into Azure for a lot of customers because you try and, it's the old eating the elephant analogy. You can't go for it in one go. There's lots and lots of products that you need to work out what aligns with your current challenge, you know, customer base, your go-to-market already as it stands. And as Jan said, finding the solutions that add value to what you already have is the key to getting going. You know, there's no point ripping out a really successful on-prem server estate, you know, that you put in like last year with Azure, but there's nothing to be said that that exact same customer can't do something new with data and analytics or possibly with AVD that they couldn't do before, and keep all the stuff on-prem. Don't touch that, just add to it and offer them a new service that they couldn't do successfully or at the same cost using, for instance, Citrix Workspace or whatever else it might be. End customers are getting more and more savvy. I mean, since the pandemic hit, the acceleration in SMB customers wanting the latest and greatest thing without having really any understanding of whether it will give them any value or not has increased exponentially. And I saw it with, you know, from an education point of view, with my kids all coming home, and then within a week, all the school infrastructure had to change. Despite the fact that no doubt 6 months before, somebody probably had a conversation with them about, are you sure you just want to keep going with this server in the kitchen? And they were like, yeah, it's fine. We don't need to do anything else. Don't worry about it. So the speed of change has definitely accelerated, and there is opportunity all over the place. And the gap between what an enterprise customer wants and what an SMB customer wants seems to be shrinking and getting closer in time. It used to be about 10 years. That was probably 20 years ago, then 5 years. It's probably running about 12 to 18 months behind now. And there's obviously overlap as well between that. Some SMB end customers want the very latest thing, but perhaps not across their entire business. So you need to be aware of the things that are available, the kind of stuff that customers are going to be asking about, could come from all over the place now. And trying to deliver that with traditional methods can be either impossible or really difficult. Thankfully with Azure, because of the amount of white papers, documentation, landing zones and support from us and other partners that we work with, it's a much easier prospect to learn and get something to market. So I think I covered all that in there. So So there, wow, that is the last time I looked, the kind of amount of offerings that you've got grouped up in Azure. So these aren't individual products at all. These are kind of the functional elements that sit within the Azure proposition. But what I did to try and make this a little bit less overwhelming is I've flagged things SMB, which in my view are the most relevant things that crop up already within the customers I'm dealing with. Now, a year ago, there'd probably be about 8 or 9 less SMB badges on that. And probably in another 6 months, there'll be another 5 or 6 on there. Now, that's not to say that products that don't have a badge on aren't suitable. It's just not where an SMB customer normally goes off and gets a solution built in. So, data lake, for instance. Yeah, I do have some SMB and customers that have that, but it's not something that you would probably lead with as a go-to-market proposition. It's something that you can deal with if somebody needs that, and we could support you with that, for instance. But all the traditional stuff that's grouped into, obviously, management and protection, you need to be looking at all of these things. I find that Azure Assist is something that's often overlooked, but that is in there. But obviously, migrate, ASR, backup, Azure Advisor, all these things are all very standard, not tied to any vertical or market sector. And then obviously the security side. A year ago, Sentinel would not have been something that I would have had a conversation with an SMB reseller or end customer about, but it absolutely is. Everybody wants to figure out whether they can stand up their own service in Sentinel or back that off to somebody else, or at the very least understand what it is that they can do with that without having to set their own security center up. And there's a lot more on there, obviously. Virtual machines is somewhere in here. There we are, that's it. So a lot of people come to Azure thinking it's just this. It's just the virtual machine, perhaps Azure AD, so just the two out of this entire table. So it is all things to all men, but you don't have to go at it and do everything all at the same time. That's the key thing. So yeah, so don't panic, but there's a lot of scale, a lot of scope. Right, I'm going to move on. I love this slide. So again, this is coming back to the burger analogy. If McDonald's, other burger joints are available, was just selling lettuce, for instance, and they did really well in it, that'd be great. It's not really a model that they're going to make enough money on, though. Their lettuce slice, for want of a better analogy, is going to be similar to the amount of gross profit you can make from Azure out of the whole mix, which in this, I think this was an IDC chart or a Forrester chart, pretty recent as well. So out of the total pie of profit from dealing with somebody on a cloud, a cloud solution, you're talking about 6% of that. Oh, sorry, 7%. Yeah, 6% of the profit will come from the actual consumption. So that's a problem if that's all you're doing. So my whole pitch in this whole section is really about, and the next section with the partner journeys, it's about getting away from trying to sell just the bare components, because at best you're going to be looking at, let's say, perhaps 10% of the overall potential profit of that opportunity. So where's the other 90% going? Well, the 90% might be taken internally by the customer. They might think they've got enough staff, or they might have enough staff, but those staff cost money, and they're doing a lot of work themselves. Or it might be going split between you, another reseller, and somebody else, or it could be any mix of stuff. But for you to maximize your return selling Azure, you need to be looking at all the rest of it. And that goes through professional services from the very start, which will be the assessment phase. Critical, absolutely critical. And then migration and execution of that. There could well be a refactoring and re-architecting going on there. Sometimes there's not. More often than not, there is, especially if you're adding new lines of business or new applications or some new solution onto there that they didn't have previously. Then you've got the ongoing management of it, and then any value-added licensing as well, because there's often an upsell possible, opportunity from their existing M365 licenses. When you go to Azure, it could be that they're on business standard, or it could be that they're on a lower level product and they're talking about an AVD installation, in which case you're going to increase all those guys to business premium. So you've got, an increase there, you've got onboarding to that, you've got end user education, and then you've got the new solution in AVD. So it's very much an MSP offering. Traditional VAR, I'm struggling to think of any traditional VARs that are still going in their current guise without having any kind of MSP offering there. Because if they are, well, there you go. I don't know who they are, because they can't survive in this current environment now. Just selling the box alone means that you're leaving 90% of the profit on the table for somebody else. And as many stats, I could have had 20 slides on this. An SMB customer is far more likely to work with a partner that can offer him a wider range of services. Same reason that I pay more than I should probably, than I would like to Virgin, because they can do everything. Okay, the service kind of sucks a lot of the time, but I don't want to have to use 3 or 4 other providers to try and get the same overall service. Even if it might save me a little bit of money, cost in terms of pounds, it's not going to save me any money if something goes wrong and then everybody blames everybody else. Or the wife can't get Netflix on and I'm away and I'm not sure, is it Sky or is it BT or is it Virgin on that one? Who knows? So yeah, that doesn't help. So there's lots of opportunities within Azure for partners, starting from the planning. So going through planning, enablement, and operations. This is not in any way a box shift. Planning out in Azure is absolutely key. To get the right result in Azure, compare it to somebody building you an extension on your house. If you phone the cheapest builder and he comes out and looks at the space from his car while he's on his phone and goes, right, chances are the solution you're going to end up with there in the extension won't be up to code, won't last very long, won't be built very well, and is it going to fit the brief? Did he even ask you what the brief was? And does he check it afterwards and make sure that you feel happy about it? Probably not. So you want the guy that's not the cheapest, that's going to come in, assess the situation, work out what it is that you want from it, consider the neighbours, consider the building that he's attaching this extension to, and so on. And then, and then with all that data and information, you should be in a position to get a well-priced solution that fits what you want. That's Azure. Without knowing what the customer's already got and what they want to do, you're just guessing at it. And I've seen this thousands of times. End customer comes in, I want to buy an Azure. It's okay, so it's not a thing. Oh yeah. Yeah, and Azure isn't a thing. It's a solution to a problem. So you need to be looking at what it is that they want to do, why they're interested in Azure, and what's the solution they're trying to overcome. A lot of it is lift and shift, as in sort of end of life on-prem servers, but increasingly more of it is about providing data platforms for a customer. It's about that supporting that remote work and remote access to materials proposition. It could be about processing large amounts of data for cognitive AI, traffic systems and all this kind of stuff. All of that runs in the cloud and couldn't work any other way. So yeah, but lots of opportunities for you. And again, you don't have to do all of this all at once. And as I'll come to later in the session, we can help with everything apart from having a plan and having a customer. That's all you guys need to have. We can fill in all the blanks and help you get from only having those 2 components moving through, but the plan is key. So lots of opportunity. And I've gone off the slide. So we've got some slides from Microsoft here that I'm not going to take too long to go through because you can get these quite easily online, and I'm sure this is all stuff that you've heard before. It's increasingly uncertain times, inflation, energy, talent shortages. Yeah. We know all about that. And you can accelerate and migrate into Azure to help some of this. Absolutely, there is energy cost efficiency with going to Azure. It's not to say that Azure pricing will never increase because of power, but because they already built all of their data centers as energy efficient as they could possibly have done in the first place, and most of them have been built within the last 15 years, the rate of increase is tempered by that investment in energy efficiency at the front. So not saying it will never go up, but it will not go up as fast as certainly my bills have been going up over the last 12 months, and data center bills have been going up. Lower costs, increase ROI. Well, we've talked about this. Use your existing investments, maximize your savings going to Azure. That's with cost optimization and things like that. But I'm going to do a better job of talking through these slides by looking at the partner journeys as well. It's not a bad slide, not a bad slide. It is apparently faster than AWS. I'm sure AWS probably has a very similar slide that says it's probably the same or the other way around. The good thing with obviously looking in the Microsoft ecosystem is they do own the other products that you then get discounts from and interaction and cross compatibility with. So Windows Server and SQL, it doesn't take a genius to work out where you're going to get the best value from if you then use their cloud platform. So some of the hybrid use benefits are, massive, and obviously you can transfer licensing across. Again, something that we can help you with in terms of flicking the switch and confirming that you've got it. That obviously does not work with AWS or with GCC. That looks just the same as the other slide, so we'll blur that one off. So I do like this slide. So another advantage of using Azure versus the competition, or keeping everything on-prem, is the fact that it's most likely going to be to an end customer that's already got Microsoft. There's not that many out there that don't. So let's just assume that your customer that you're talking to, he's looking at a re-platforming or looking at an AVD solution or something else. He's already on Microsoft 365. Okay, great. Well, first off, you've got common identity running through all of this, and as we all know, identity is king now. It doesn't matter where the thing is. It's all about the person, the user, the security, and the access that person's got. So you've got a common identity that flows through Azure AD. Then you've got a unified platform. So your M365 management console, unsurprisingly, looks very much like the Azure platform. And there's lots of commonality between all of these things. So you don't need to completely train somebody up in a whole new way of thinking and a whole new platform with all new logins and all the rest of it. Data is, obviously contained in the same kind of place. So if you're looking for it over here, it's also over there. Thinking of SharePoint, team sites, and all the rest of it like that. Again, and the way that you would interact that from an Azure proposition point of view, grabbing data from Power BI out of something that's already in Microsoft means you don't have to duplicate data across 3 different places to grab it from different products that aren't connected to Microsoft. And the security is also a massively important element with having everything in the one ecosystem, because your approach will be a common approach that can then cover from the user and identity level all the way through to advanced SIEM and XDR solutions, again, without having to reset stuff up and miss things. So you have a hole in between one vendor's proposition and the next. So not blah. So in case you didn't know, Azure has got a lot of data centers out there, very, all over the shop. The way it works by regions. It works by region. So for instance, in the UK, we can sell to the European region, and within that you've got X number of, and when I say you can sell within, you can actually have the equipment in any of the data centers as long as the customer using it is within Europe. Otherwise, well, it just wouldn't work if everybody had a free for all. So it's all about where you are and where the customer is. But then you can deploy services wherever you want within the world. Most people don't. Most people keep stuff within the same region that they're in, just for ease of use, and obviously for latency, depending on how far away you are. And compliance. Not something I wanted to go into too much detail of in this session, but from Microsoft as a company, and especially when it comes to Azure data centers and Azure services, they say they are the most compliant. I'm going to take them at the word that they are. But in whichever region you're selling into, they have a whole suite of compliancy tools. They have a trust center. They have a compliance center as well, so that anybody that's looking for particular information on, whether it's health or finance or whatever it might be, is this platform secure for me? 99 times out of 100 or more, they're going to be better than anything else that you could get from any other data center, unless they happen to do a really specific job for a specific vertical. But on the whole, you're going to be far better covered, and the information is really easy to get to. So you don't have to waste your time working out whether or not this SLA or this GDPR regulation or this FICA problem is addressed within Microsoft. Take you 5 minutes to figure all this out. So this slide is not blah. This is what I wanted to get to. So where's the opportunity in Azure? So as you can see on the top right, Microsoft, out of all of the hyperscalers, is the only one that's seen significant growth. Google, hats off to them, fair enough. They have grown from 6% to 10% over the last sort of 3 years. Microsoft, however, from a market share point of view, have gone from 12 up to 23% at the end of last year. And that's great. I mean, the only reason that Amazon are ahead is because they started early, and they have obviously a massive installed base built around their storage capabilities globally. So all of your streamers, Disney, Netflix, and obviously Amazon Prime as well, utilize that as their backbone for all of their streaming services. And but that means that they sort of plateaued out, and they haven't grown their market share at all, and kept a trend over the last 5 years. The UK market, as it stands at the moment, is actually 20 billion in cloud revenue as well. So this number is never going to go down. So there's a massive market to go after. And remember this slide. So sorry, not slide, this stat. So Azure in the UK across SMB customers. So this is the way that Microsoft look at this, because they segment their base into small and medium customers and small medium businesses, and then they've got the enterprise set and all the rest of it. This is the fastest growing market from a percentage point of view, and year-on-year growth is 44%. So if you are an Azure seller and you're doing better than 44% year-on-year, fab, you're bucking the trend. If you're doing less, then in terms of the overall UK growth, you're going backwards. So, but that's not to be disheartened. It's a good stat to be attached to. It's certainly a lot higher than hardware growth in the UK, which is pretty flat, if not negative, apart from the ones that have got into the sort of HCI and the collaborative plays with the cloud. So remember that 44%. Right, and on that note, and almost bang on 11 o'clock, I've put a break in here. So should we have 5 minutes? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we're good.
And anybody got any
Perfect,
questions
thank
before we
you.
break as well?
No.
We'll catch questions on the way back then. No problem. Right, well, true to my word, it's 3 minutes past 11. I hope everybody's back. If anybody wants to give me a thumbs up. Thanks, Richard. Okay, cool. Well, Jan's departed. He's got other stuff to deal with, so it's just me now. So for the next hour, so feel free to I won't say abuse me, but you know, let's keep those questions and points and comments coming. I want to try and make this interactive. There is a little interactive section coming up soon as well, so I hope everybody's awake enough for that. So let's crack on. Okay, so what I wanted to do with this is a lot going on in that slide, so I'm just going to preface that. What we've talked about so far, obviously, about the opportunity with Azure, the kinds of products and tools and solutions and things like that that are available, you know, can be overwhelming. And I've worked with many partners now over the last 3 years, a bit more than 3 years actually, 3.5 years, on their Azure journey. And so what I wanted to do is take two completely separate two totally different kind of customers, taking one that was a traditional VAR that's moved to well, really a cloud MSP, and then another customer who's gone from a small MSP managing on-prem infrastructure, a bit of security, to focusing, putting all their eggs in the Azure and Microsoft basket as a cloud MSP. And I want to just talk through the kind of steps that they went through. Now, I do know the detail behind it, but I'm not going to give any names or who these partners are. Just because it's not that relevant, and I didn't double check that was actually okay, but it's fine because I'm not giving you any details as to that you'll be able to figure it out. So if we look at this, so this is a traditional VAR to a cloud MSP, and this journey was it was about 2.5 years, 3 years in the making, and basically these are the steps that they went through to go from selling tin, selling laptops, servers, doing a bit of installation, nothing too crazy, and you know, now they've moved right to the other end, being one of our most profitable for them and thorough and organized and professional outfits when it comes to supplying Azure. So the first thing that they did was very key, is they had a strategy, which was we want to move from this model that we've got now. We're not making enough percentage profit. Profit margins are shrinking. It's a race to the bottom. We want to develop our cloud strategy. So great. So they've got that in mind from the top down. So off the back of that, they create a plan. So what does the plan look like? You know, that plan at that point in time kind of looked like, right, well, we need somebody to own the cloud business. We need a bit of technical resource. So what have we got within the business? Do we need to hire somebody? And they went out and hired somebody who was put in charge of pre-sales for cloud. So just added into their original, you know, their existing infrastructure team that they had. There was a couple of guys, and this person was tasked with learning more about cloud. And it was from that point that they reached out to the CSP team here. We already had a relationship with this customer anyway, but they started working with our team. So from that point on, first thing we did was we helped them with the pre-sales skilling. And that's done in many ways. That's done from speaking to us from an opportunity to opportunity basis, reactive. So customer A asks for this. I don't know the answer. Let's ask TD SYNNEX. Okay, that's fine. We do that day in, day out. Also, skilling themselves up and having a training plan. So, you know, where do they need to get to maximize their return selling Microsoft products? And I should say that this plan this isn't just for Azure. This was M365, bit of Dynamics, bit of Azure, bit of Power Platform. You know, it's all kind of encompassed. You find that things stick once you start learning about one area. The customer goes, "Oh, I see you sell that now, or you can help me with that. What about this?" So a lot of these things sort of snowball. But so we help them with the skilling and the training. That was done point to point with myself, with the pre-sales team that we have. And then also we provide training as well, either free stuff that we have access to. We do paid for training of various different kinds. There's obviously Microsoft training as well through MS Learn, and an inordinate amount of webinars, workshops and events throughout the year. So again, you need a plan, or you could end up with some guy who basically is never in the office, never available for all the training that they're doing, which might be okay for a week or two, but you might run the risk of them leaving. So then after they had a bit of skills, they then looked at the kind of solution area focus that they were going to be going at. So, you know, how do you do that? Well, you look at your current base. That's the easiest place to start. No point creating something that you don't know if there's a market for. So they looked at their current base and decided that at that point in time, doing a play on Azure Virtual Desktop, or Windows Virtual Desktop as it was the right starter move for them. So by looking at that, they then had a proposition. You know, they created something that they could take out and go, right, hey guys, we do this now, and cascade that both to their customers but also internally to the team. So the team was like having a conversation with the customer. Oh, if you know, how are you managing your your desktops? Is COVID affecting this? Blah 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 blah. You know, and of course it was the right place, right time a little bit, because they then had plenty of customers that like, I really need to get better control over all this. Got users all over the shop, don't know what's going on with the security and so on. So they then skilled up again on that particular area. So now they have one guy that's managing 2 more guys who's then able to deliver more and more solutions and manage that remotely by increasing the technical resource. And then they, off the back of that, they then bolstered their sales team and their operational teams, because, you know, managing some of these things from an ops point of view isn't the same as what you would have had with just selling a set of servers. You know, then you've got probably a project management involved. You've got somebody that's going, right, you procurement needs to just order that and get it delivered to us probably, or on site, and we'll sync with the engineer. Obviously with Azure, it doesn't work like that. You know, often with partners I deal with, sometimes it's procurement that dealing with any order, even if it's a subscription. But then more often than not, it's actually not procurement anymore. It sits within the technical function, because it's ordering and provisioning. So it's not just ordering a server, laptop. What do I want? How am I paying? Where's it being delivered? It's who wants this? What's all the details that they need? Who has access? And when do you want it to start? So that often needs either a technical support role, or it needs to be, you know, process led within the procurement team. So at that point in time in their journey, that was done by technical. Actually changes as they go through time, as we'll see from this. And then they went out to market with it. So they used marketing, they used the sales team to then take that individual proposition out. At that point, they realized that they were missing out on a few points of margin. They weren't able to advertise the fact and staple, you know, a Microsoft badge against their solution. So they then focused on the competencies, which at that point in time was cloud platform for Azure. It's since changed, and I've got some information on that in a bit anyway, so that they can say, right, here's a solution that we have. We've done a few now. We know what we're doing with it, and also we've got a couple of Microsoft badges that attest to our effort and our focus on it. So we went through all this with them and helped them with all of that. They then engaged with our team to help them streamline the way that they went to provision the AVD solution as well. So we have various tools and bits and bobs that can speed up the process to save time. So instead of then spending 4 days creating one instance and then might be able to repeat it the same, might not, we have some tooling that allows them to just take that from us as code and then spit out an AVD environment in about 3 hours. It actually only takes 20 minutes, then you wait 3 hours and it's there, done. So that then saved a load of time, meant that they could accelerate the amount of deployments they did. Then what they did is they discovered that they needed to upskill the service desk. So why do they need to upskill the service desk? I hear you ask. Well, the thing is with CSP is that the ownership of the subscription and the support falls on you guys, the resellers. That's the way that Microsoft create the program, and that then cascades to us. So no end customer goes to Microsoft for support or help. All they can go to Microsoft for is learning materials and content, which is obviously free online. Everything else they come via the channel. So it's a massively supportive channel model where customer to partner to provider, that's us, we go to Microsoft if we can't fix it. So we have to offer support as well. We don't offer it for any other vendor, just Microsoft. We have to have a support desk 24/7 that allows that to happen. So we helped them skill up their support desk, so they offered a better service when it came to Microsoft Cloud, as in their ticket response, ticket response came down because they knew what to ask the customer. They understood the platforms, they understood the Azure portal, and they knew how to escalate things to us. So ultimately, better service for their end customer. They can charge more. And that again goes straight through and then again at that time they added some more resource to the team to skill up, because now they weren't just doing AVD, they were doing lots of other projects as well, often for the same customers as well. Customers got a Power BI project that they're interested in, got loads of data everywhere, don't know what to do with it. Okay, let's have a look what we can do with it. And also more and more lift and shift. So they moved to kind of a in between this stage here, move to a cloud first mentality. So anybody that was coming up for renewal on on-prem infrastructure, they weren't just going, right, we'll sell you some more servers. It was very much the first point should be going to the cloud. Now, again, as we said earlier, that doesn't mean you throw everything away. If you've got lots of local storage that you need access to, that makes no sense sticking that in the cloud. Keep that where it is and have a section of that synced to the cloud if you need it as you go along. Chances are data, you don't need as much as you have. We've all got hard drives and stuff lurking around our houses, duplicated again and again and again. And that's the same with business. So generally you're starting off with an Exchange server, moving that to the cloud, that makes sense. SharePoint server, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And then if you're looking at production servers, depends where it's going to fit best. If you've got cost controls in place and on and off scheduling, there's no reason why Azure wouldn't be far cheaper, especially for something like AVD. It always works out far cheaper than having a fleet of servers at one place and then the data sending all around the joint. So they fine-tuned the commercial model at that point as well and offered bundles, just like we were showing you before with BMO. So they started going to market with a AVD package solution at a cost per seat, which is a mix, as again with BMO, a mix of the licenses, a mix of the compute, storage, and managed services around it and support, all for a fixed cost. To make it really easy for an end customer to go, okay, that makes sense. And then, of course, you get the license sale as well that they might not have been getting before, because at that point, thankfully, before it was NCE, you could just cancel the licenses with the last guy and order them from the new one. So that was a really good model. That dovetailed in with them creating that defined professional services engagement. And they did a lot of that themselves. They did use us for a couple of opportunities and then sort of took that and ran with it and added some more resource that they were thankfully they were lucky enough to get hold of, and then started seeing the margins increase quite rapidly, to get away from that 9% wedge of the pie only to 50-60% of that wedge, and then backing off the other 40 or 30% off to either ourselves or other partners that they work with as well. And then around this point in time, they completely changed their approach to, not completely changed, they're already on the cloud journey, but they went very much cloud. What else can we do? Let's become experts in everything that we're looking at. So looking at Purview, looking at Viva, looking at compliance, looking at sustainability, and really expanding that platform out. 3 or 4 new hires in the team, 10 new hires on sales, and the marketing function really stepped up a notch as well. Maximizing the return on investment they got from Microsoft, getting as much money as they could. We were supporting them as well with some campaigns that they developed, and basically they're flying along now, making the most amount of money they can from the Microsoft incentive stack, delving into all of the new technology areas that they could. That made sense. Still got to have customers to sell this stuff to. So, but gaining knowledge as you go along. And in recent times, since Microsoft Cloud Partner Program was launched, really doubling down to be as fast as possible to get the right certifications so they can then promote that, maximizing the benefits. And now we're looking at that advanced specialization pathway, which for those new to Azure is kind of the next step after you're looking at your solution designation. And that then opens up yet more doors and yet more opportunities for margin and for larger customers. So stats on this: 300% year-on-year Azure growth. ACPC is a number that I deliberately didn't unabbreviate because that's average revenue per customer in Azure. So Azure consumption per customer. That's a metric that Microsoft use a lot. And it is relevant because the more customers you have, well, rewind that one, the lower the ACPC, the less money per customer you're obviously making, and the more management you have. Now, there are two sides to that coin, but generally speaking, the higher the revenue per customer, the better, because you can standardize your services. You've not got as many people doing tons of different things, and it's just easier to manage and more profit overall. And it's the kind of model that, again, coming back to Virgin or Sky, everybody wants to add you that other thing. So the more that you can have with less customers, the better it is for you as a business. Flip side, it might be you've got a really quick solution. So it might be a bit of Azure Site Recovery or backup or DR or something that's quite a simple, not complicated sell, not difficult to manage. You can manage it at scale across multiple customers in one platform with Lighthouse anyway. So it's the same thing repeated. Then that's okay. You could have an ACPC of like 100 quid across 100 customers, but because it's just the one kind of product, that's all right, no problem. You can manage that. It's when you've got a low ACPC, but lots of different solutions, and it's a problem. And that's something that I really can't hammer home enough, how important it is to try and avoid that. If you're led by the tail, you'll end up speaking to me in 6 months' time going, Dave, we can't make any money off Azure. I hate it. We always lose money. I don't even know if I'm making money, and so on. And nearly every time I have that conversation, it's because you've sold what the customer asked only. You've not got there's no standardization. And I do have a slide on this in a minute that I'll come to. But also the customer here, they've pretty much doubled their headcount as across this time period as well, but split it. So you've got a higher proportion of ops and service desk to what they would have traditionally had as sales, and far more technical resource. Because of that, they've got nearly 30 Microsoft certifications, decent ones, not just half-hour courses online, but proper certifications across the full suite of Azure, Modern Workplace, and Dynamics as well. And because of this investment and visibility, they're attracting larger and larger customers that 3 years ago nobody would have bet that they would have been able to bag some of these customers, and they have. And it's testament to the plan that they had in place over these 3 years, constantly supported from the top, driven by the right people in the right positions, doing the right job. And with our help, we have helped on lots of these elements where we've got the little Nautilus. These are things that I particularly remember us being massively involved with. But throughout all of this, we've been a trusted partner all the way along, whether it's just for a catch-up call or a quick, how do we do this, or where do I find that information? That's what we're here for. So before I move on to the next one, which is a lot smaller than this, by the way, any questions? Please come off mute if you have. I know you're there.
All good. All good.
Yeah? All right. Okay, cool. Right, so this is a smaller MSP. So a similar kind of plan, but took a lot less time. And I mean, the reason why it took less time is that they've relied on us more than partner one. And I'm not saying that this is a better model. I'm just saying this is another model. So instead of doing the training and skilling up themselves, they had just enough knowledge to be able to know and recognize a sale opportunity. And this customer also only had sort of 10 or 12 staff. So it was kind of a real close knit team between sales and pre-sales. It was kind of just pre-sales. You know, pre-sales was sales. So the engagement with the customer, a new customer, was at that pre-sales technical level. So that meant there was they didn't have to push any buy-in from a sales point of view to be able to get the proposition understood. Then they came to us. And we did the qualification, we did the sales enablement, we helped them get their go-to-market sorted out. And then when it came to opportunity management, they just used our services. So in terms of assessment and migration, they don't need to learn how to do that. What tools are the right tools? How do I do it? Where do I get a license from? Just drop it on us and we did it for them. They then went for the advanced support plan with us, so we upskilled their service desk as well. And then as they're going along, they fine-tuned the commercial model at this point to make sure that they were, again, bundling things up, making it easier for their customers to understand, but also making it easier for them to understand. Because if you've got a menu that's got, 400 pages, like a Witherspoons, sometimes people just want, just specials of the day. They don't want to be spent 45 minutes looking through a massive menu. So that's also for the team, because you're sending off random dishes to the restaurant, to the kitchen. It's like, what am I making here? What's going on? So keeping it simple, is definitely a good bit of advice there. And then as well as using us for the migration, so assessment and migration stage, they're using us for the managed services as well. So again, they didn't have to learn how to, manage the security, manage the patching, doing the optimization, and all the rest of it. Now, I would expect over time that this customer will change their model, and they'll not need as much from us in terms of the same services as they have now and had in the past. But we will always be adding more services on. So I'm not worried from a services point of view. It's great to see them increase 1,000% in a year. And that wasn't from £4.58. That was from, a few grand up to 30, 40 grand. And obviously with Azure, that just keeps going. It's not like selling a server, once. It's going to, they'll have probably 200% increase for the next couple of years, get to 100, 150K a month. And then, all of a sudden they're quite a big player. But yeah, so the point of this one was that by you taking the elements and building blocks from us, instead of them training up and learning and managing it themselves, they have also been able to accelerate in a really, quite a quick time frame, and also win large customers again, because I think we had it in a previous slide, but the market has definitely changed. I mean, I've actually been in this industry for about 25 years now, and 20 years ago, the mere thought of working with another partner was abhorrent. It was, oh my God, no, they'll steal all our business. That on the whole, certainly in the cloud space, seems to have gone. If somebody else has a solution which is on point, does the job, there's not really that same kind of, oh no, I can't work with them about it. And that goes not just for working with us as an indirect provider, but working with other partners offering other solutions. Like we partner up with Chorus, for instance, for security. We worked out that it was pointless for us having our own managed SOC. It's massively expensive, can't get the staff, can't keep the staff, and the ROI wasn't there. So we just work with somebody else. What's wrong with that? So that's the kind of thing that you see a lot of now, and it happens all the time, and nothing to be scared of. So they went from zero to heroes in probably about 12 months, really, with some really good wins, large customers doing 15 grand's worth of Azure just on a single customer a month, but without them having to worry about the security, the compliance, because we were doing all that for them. And lo and behold, okay, you don't make as much profit selling services that you buy from somebody else, but it is pure profit. You still make margin on it, 25, 30 points, say, on buying a service from us and then selling it on. But there's no overhead to that. It's just a line on a PO. So doing it yourself, you might recognize more margin, you might not. It's often quite a difficult thing to figure out what your internal cost is. So moving away from that. So this is what I've been intimating about, accidental Azure. So what's accidental Azure? Well, I've defined this as a process which a non-familiar cloud solution is supplied on the request of a customer with little or no preparation before. Unfortunately, this is probably the bulk of all of our subscriptions, not in terms of revenue, but in terms of how we've got to where we are, and that's from the reseller point of view. I will have several of these by the end of today that have come in new, rush jobs, not thought through, proper process not followed, and you end up with a solution that, as with the dodgy builder scoping it out from the inside his car, having a smoke, it's not fit for purpose, doesn't do what was, don't even know what the intention was, and you end up with, you don't make any money from it, because the customer will be coming back going, I don't understand my bill, I don't understand what it is I've got, what's happening, what's this cost, what's going on there, am I secure? And all of these things are happening all the time. I mean, we have there's a problem at the moment just in the market in general about fraud attacks on SMB, and what's happening is the crypto jacker people are out there hacking SMB Azure subscriptions. Why are they focusing on SMB? Well, because there's no security on most of them. It's an afterthought. You spin up the resource and you go, oh, open everything, because that's the quickest way of doing it. And then nobody comes back in and closes the doors after all the work's been done. So you've got everything running, and lo and behold, you've got 5 different global admins, none of them with MFA enabled. Now, I see that all the time. My kids' phones have better security than half of all of our Azure subscriptions have. And the thing with Azure is it's your responsibility. It's not ours. It's not the end customer. It's your subscription, and you are the one that's liable for any problem when it comes to fraud. And with support, that's why it's on you to deal with the support. So why shouldn't you make money on doing these things? Don't sell yourself short. Giving a service that is needed and necessary and potentially expensive, or it certainly costs something, without charging a customer for it. If the server breaks that they bought from HP, you fire them off to HP. You might take a note from them and send an email, and that's about it. And okay, fair enough. You shouldn't really charge that much then for that, perhaps. But that's not the same with Azure. You're managing this. You're responsible for it. It's your baby. So make sure that you keep a good tab on what's going on. So you want to avoid accidental Azure. It's going to happen anyway, because there'll be a point in time when, let's say you're on your journey 6-12 months down the line, or even sooner, you've done a few, more simple, well, not necessarily simple, but you've done a few solutions, and then another customer asks you for something else. That's okay. Don't say no. Just talk to us, and then and take it from there, and do an assessment. Always do an assessment with Azure, unless it's one SharePoint server, but anything that's a bit of meat, a full business transformation, you need to know exactly what's going on. So so avoid that. And this was the shared responsibility model. So instead of it just being talking about what's IaaS, what's PaaS, what's SaaS versus on-prem, which I'm sure we've all seen over time, the point of this is that who's responsible for each part. So you're working from an on-prem, lowest, I don't know why I'm pointing on my screen, you can't see it, but the on-prem is it's all with the customer. So in terms of a margin stack, this is working in inverse. So if you're going to be making more money, the further down this that you do, that you're managing, so it's shared here, or Microsoft's doing it, you should be making more margin as you go down. And that is what I see. Even though with SaaS, Microsoft actually cover a lot of the stuff, or whoever the vendor is, to be fair, the end goal is that the customer gets what he wants, and the cost to you of managing it comes down. So, you know, if you've got IaaS-based system, you've got that Microsoft and then customer, but actually you're going to be managing a lot of this stuff as well. So yeah, you just it's a good graph to demonstrate where the sort of responsibility lies. And that was a little snip that I always like to use from Microsoft about financially responsible for fraud. It is just fraud, but it's also for support and all the rest of it as well. You know, you're not liable if Azure goes down. Obviously, there's a 99.9997 SLA on things like that happening. But in terms of the front line of support for your customer, that's you as the reseller. Backed off to us. You can know nothing and just mail us. So what do you need to make sure you do? So don't, you know, plan out what you're going to do, and plan with the customer. We can help. Don't have poorly designed architecture. You know, there's nothing worse than building a solution for somebody to solve a different problem that they didn't have. They're going to come out of it with a bad taste in the mouth about cloud. Oh, it costs too much. It didn't do what I wanted. It was really slow. 99 times out of 100, that's because it was poorly designed. And not optimizing the resource use. So this is the thing with cloud. Don't look at it as the same. So you wouldn't build your cloud environment the same as you build it on-prem, because it's not on-prem and it's not your server. You're using shared space. So make the most of that. If your customer has 3 virtual machines now, 3 servers now, don't just assume that what you're going to need to do is build them 3 in the cloud. It might be more cost effective to have 15 in the cloud, but 5 of them are on all the time and 10 of them shut off at 5 o'clock, or 15 of them shut off, or whatever. The point is that you've got that flexibility to decide when stuff's on and for how long. And you can also then lock in price discounts on the ones that you know are going to be on all the time. So you get 30 to 58% discount for a 1-year reservation, because you're saying, this is on enough of the time that it's going to save me money by locking it in. And if you lock it in, Microsoft will give you a discount on it, but you can then turn it on and off. But that's fine, because most people don't. So managing the cloud spend. There are budget alerts. There's, you know, cost management blades. You can see what is happening with the spend over time. Make that part of your management. Make that part of your service. Charge for it as part of that management wrap. This is what I'm going to do for you, Mr. Customer. Every month we'll have a look, see what's going on, see whether we need to, you know, add another reserved instance, or perhaps your utilization is at 90% the whole time. You need another VM. Great, brilliant, more money. All good stuff. And how easy is it to do? Oh, there you are, Mr. Customer. I've just added that VM. Thanks very much. Job done. And if you rush as well, it's the security part of it as well. So security needs to be baked in. You know, how do you set up a new customer with you? You know, you're going to do a credit check, yeah, or not? You're just going to assume he's okay and send him, you know, here's 50 grand, crack on. No, you're going to check all this out, and you're going to have, you know, you can have steps in place, and you can have a process. You need the same with Azure. You need, or with Modern Workplace, to be fair. You need to know who the admins are, who's controlling what security's on there. Do you need to sell them a better license for conditional access, and so on? So, you know, just avoid the last minute making stuff up approach, because nobody comes out of that smelling of roses. So I was going to do a group exercise, but I've got a feeling I haven't got enough time for this. So I think I'm going to skip over this. And unless anybody's really against it, what I was going to do here is going to build out what the plan looks like for a reseller. But I haven't even got onto our sort of value bits and bobs and some of the program stuff. So unless anybody's got a massive aversion to it, I'm going to skip this. Oh, sorry, Richard, I was in full flow. Can you hear now?
Sorry, yes, I can. Hello?
I think you're
Good
on
old
mute,
Teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm fine now. Thanks, Richard.
I'm back. Yeah.
Right, is everybody okay if I skip the exercise?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Sure.
Any questions on any of the last sort of 20 minutes of me rambling? Or was it useful to see the sort of the potential journey pathways that you can take?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
Definitely is. Though I've been involved in a conversation with a customer that was having a SAP solution on Azure,
Okay.
and they were being told like 20 grand for the next 3 years was going to be their ongoing costs.
Okay.
At which point, of course, they went, "What? We can do it on the on-prem a lot cheaper for a 5-year."
Yeah, we
Man.
get this a lot.
What in total or SAP? I think the Azure SAP solution is a bit of a cumbersome beast, aimed at the real top-end enterprise customers. But there's probably a cheaper way of doing it without having to use the SAP on Azure solution. So some of the things within Azure, you see, one of the teams somewhere in the world, normally speaking, will be an enterprise, group of guys or gals, and they'll come up with a solution and go, "Here you go, SAP on Azure, brilliant," or Azure VMware solution or something like that. But it's not been built with SMB in mind ever. It's always been built with somebody that's got 40,000 employees, and is spending 150 grand a month on data center at the moment. And they've gone, "Here you go, there's this thing in Azure and it's brilliant and it's great and it scales and all the rest of it," but it doesn't scale down low enough to make it valid for an SMB. I bet the first thing they did that was SMB valid was probably the AVD solution, which absolutely was the right place, right time, right cost. But I mean, look, if that SAP thing's still going on, we'll have a look at it, but we won't go zooming off straight to the SAP on Azure solution. We'll have a look at the actual, what's the nuts and bolts of it, and how do you replicate it VM wise and storage wise into Azure instead? Because chances are they've used a massive hammer to hit the smallest possible nail. But we could have a look at that separately, unless it's gone too far. But
well, they said no to that. They've started the on-prem plan.
Okay.
But I think it was 3 servers, virtual servers they were running. So essentially, it's the same on-prem solution, just in the cloud.
Yes. Yeah. But they've used massive. It'll be over-egged.
Yeah.
Guarantee that solution at 20 grand a year or 20 grand a month or whatever would have been able to cope with 20 times the amount of traffic or whatever the metric is on SAP on Azure. SAP on Azure definitely happens all over the place, but I've not actually seen one that's been done on the SAP on Azure solution.
Okay.
It's generally just re-architectured with other bits.
I suppose that's where our problem is. We couldn't understand it enough to go, actually, you can do it cheaper.
No. I mean, and it's no guarantee either. It could be that, in this case, Azure actually isn't the right fit, and it's not always going to be the best fit. And that is a fairly, it's not niche. There's lots of people on SAP, but it doesn't come up that often in the SMB space. I suppose back to what I was saying in the first hour, I should be expecting it to come up more often then, because there is a cycle on this thing. But for traditional, smaller infrastructures, 5 to 50 VMs, you normally find that Azure is not any more expensive than doing it on-prem, especially once you factor in hybrid use benefit, you factor in reserved instance. But definitely always an assessment first, then you look at the cost optimization part of it, and that's an ongoing process over time. But we can help with all that kind of total cost of ownership stuff and all the rest of it. That's a service that's free from Microsoft, funded. Sorry, I need to stop saying free. So that can be dealt with quite easily. The SAP thing, though, if you get another one, please get in touch, and I'll happily have a crack at that.
As you say, we don't tend to have many SAP people on. It's only 10 users, but they found it the best solution for them.
I think that is smashing an egg with a jackhammer using a SAP Azure on SAP Azure solution. Right. I've covered that one off. So what I'm going to do. So Azure programs. So depending on where everybody is on this call in terms of their journey at the moment, you might have heard of the Cloud Partner Program. You might be on it for Modern Workplace anyway. I like this program. The problem we had with the last program was that everybody had Cloud Platform because you could get it without actually even doing any Azure. So everybody had this Cloud Platform badge that they would show with pride that meant absolutely nothing to anybody. It might have meant something to an end customer because they're like, oh, Cloud Platform, brilliant, I'll use these guys, they're amazing. And they'd not even actually done any Azure. They might have stood something up and had a log analytic file going into it or something. But what we have now is we have a proper program that recognizes effort. So it's customer ads, it's customer revenue, and it's 2 levels of expertise to be able to get a badge in Azure. So for those starting off, don't be daunted. This is not impossible to get to. In fact, if you're starting off, this can actually be easier to attain than for somebody that might have been doing it for a couple of years, but has a static number of customers, because it's easier for you to add 2, and it's only small numbers. You don't have to add 50 customers. It's like, I think, if I remember right, it's 2 customers in a trailing 12-month period. But if you've got 10 and you only got 12 customers in total, you know, and it's that kind of model, that could be a challenge. Whereas if you're starting up, 2 customers doing anything in Azure is going to be reasonably easy to get hold of. But then you get infrastructure designation, which is a nice little badge to have. And you do have to put some effort in to get there. And this is what it looks like, the partner journey. So obviously you've got a membership. I'm going to assume that everybody's probably got either an action pack or our solution partner as part of the Microsoft 365 agreement. And then basically you get your solution partner designator. That then allows you to get the incentives, which on Azure, I've got a slide on that, it's 4%. End to end once you've got that solution partner. But then after that, from an Azure point of view, we're looking at specializations. And then on from there, you've actually got other programs and things, which I'm not going to go into any detail on. You know, we happily have a separate call with people once they're on the journey about what does the future look like, where do you think I should get to, and how can we get there. We've got a lot of knowledge around all this stuff. We've got a lot of support from Microsoft. It's going to need a plan at your end, and it's going to need effort. You know, all good things come to those that put the effort in, right? So that's what the overall partner journey looks like. Yeah. And again, the end goal for anybody looking at Azure is getting to advanced specialization, which is you've already got your infrastructure solution partner designator. So you've got 2 people that have done your admin, you've got 2 people that have done your expert level Azure courses, and then you've got the revenue and you've got the customer ads. After that, you then go for something that's called advanced specialization, which is a far more focused and involving program, which is done by sections. So it might be data and well, it's even more specific than data analytics. It could be SAP on Azure, coming back to SAP. It could be AVD. It could be data platform, and then basically you specialize in that one little area. Another 5 or 6 exams, an audit, all this. It's not daunting because you've probably got to that. If you've got to that point, it's great. But that then opens up a whole other suite of cash from the Azure Migration and Modernization Program to you, which is funding for POCs, funding for workshop delivery, funding for actual professional service delivery by you as well. So if you want to bring a project forward and get paid handsomely for delivering it, you know, 150 grand's worth of Azure in a 12-month period project, you could get 20 grand paid to you for the PS. You know, now you might have been charging some of that to the customer, you might not have been. The point is there's money floating around. So that's where everybody should be that's the end goal. That is again, I'll talk to you. Anybody wants to know about the specializations, if you're already on the path for Azure, let's have a separate call. Okay. So as I said, this is the Azure CSP Motion incentive. And at the moment, you get 4% on the back end. The eligibility is that you have a infrastructure Azure MCPP certification, or you've got an active gold or silver competency for cloud platform. Off the back of that, Microsoft will pay you 4% on the back for all of your Azure done through CSP. If you have any Azure reservations in there, they'll give you 10% for that. And then there is a workload accelerator as well, which I'd have to go through a separate set of slides to explain. But basically, if you're doing projects with data and app innovation and or analytics and AI, and you've ticked the box, they can see the kind of products that you're consuming, things like cognitive services and stuff. It's a bit of a niche program. I've probably got 2 partners that get anything out of that out of 300, so I won't worry about that. The 4% is the one you want to remember, and the 10% on the reservation. So doing a reservation isn't necessarily kicking yourself by reducing the cost to the partner, to the customer, sorry, because you do get more than twice as much rebate on the cost of that reservation. So, and this is obviously the current incentive till the end of September this year. And if you are lucky enough that you get more than 10%, over 10 grand in a half, then they will split it with rebate 40% to co-op. So marketing team can be happy that they get something directly to them, and that can be used for anything, any kind of marketing, any kind of training, any kind of workshops, all kinds of stuff. So it's quite flexible. There we go. That's the Azure Assist program. Massively complicated. That's why you need us. You need me for this. The best bit about the Azure Assist program, so this is a suite of stuff that they have every half to help everybody with Azure. All you need to know is talk to us about it. The best things for anybody starting off with Azure is probably Azure credit offer, so proof of concept funding for any new opportunity, and solution assessments, which are funded assessment services done by Microsoft on per opportunity. So if you've got something more than 5 virtual machines, we can get a funded assessment done. You need to know very little. You just need to know the customer. That's it. Customer and the fact that you know who we are. We can do all the work. We can do all the form filling in and all the rest of it for you, and then get that done. So yeah, get on board with that. If you've got anything at the moment you're working on in the Azure landscape, you're like, oh, I'm not sure, don't know how to approach this. Let's have a chat. You know, if it's under 5, yeah, we're gonna have to do something else. Might have to coach you on Azure Migrate or something like that. Or you could pay us to do the services, but I don't. This is not a sales session. I'm not selling that to you. So, you know, if it's something free, I'm happy to use it. Accelerates the sales cycle. It's all good. Proof of concept as well. Again, dead simple. 952 quid this works out to. So if you've got anything you're working on in Azure where you think a proof of concept pot will help get that over the line, it's not something, unfortunately, you can keep for yourself. This is it goes directly as a credit onto the customer's subscription, so they will get notified that that's gone on. But it just needs to be a deal that's over $12,000 worth in the next 12 months, or you think it will be over $12,000 worth. They don't come back after 12 months and check it and ask for a refund. So as long as it's not 2 VMs, unless they're big VMs, you know, this is something that you need to be keeping in your back pocket. Yeah, this was solution assessments. I'm not going to talk through this slide. Just remember, there's assessment services available. Talk to me. I've done dozens of these now. It's a really good value add, saves a load of time out of your business, and you'll learn as you go along as well, because these guys, basically it's the team that do all the assessments for the direct customers at Microsoft. So if you're Barclays or HMRC, you basically buy directly from Microsoft, but you don't have to do assessments. So who do you use? Use the same team that they now let us use for SMB opportunities, which is great, because they know their assessment tools. They know what to ask the customers. They know how to introduce new scans to uncover new opportunities as well, without it seeming like they're selling anything as well. It's great. And there's no compete here. They do not sell nothing. They just do scanning, pass the reports to you, to top and tail, present back to the customer. Really, really good service. MS Learn, this is more for the deck, just so you've got this in one place. Obviously, lots of places to get training and support from Microsoft. We have stuff ourselves as well. You might not know we're a top 20 training provider. So we have lots of courses on our TD Academy website as well. Anything from just buying an exam voucher all the way through to blended learning with instructor-led courses, in-person workshops, all kinds of stuff. So just again, if you're looking for a bit of training on Azure or any other vendor, we may well have it on there as well. Okay, so we've only got a few minutes left. I will go through this in a little bit less detail than I would like to. Challenges in the market. We've covered a lot of this off already through the session. You've got rapid evolution of specialization and specialist areas. Lots of customers asking for stuff that sometimes we haven't even heard of, and we have to go and do some research on. Biggest thing, probably the skills shortage. Especially for cloud engineers, cloud architects, DevOps guys, security administrators. They are as hard to get hold of as, you know, top surgeons in the UK, and money wise, probably on a similar amount. I mean, we obviously we're hiring all the time, and the requests that we're seeing over the last 3 or 4 months for security engineers and just Azure architects with not necessarily that much experience, it's 6-figure now. And I wish I was a bit more technical, to be fair, but that's what you're looking at. So it's just not practical for everybody to have these skills in-house. So use us is the point. It's also expensive for third platform operations to manage that and create your own platforms and all that kind of stuff as well. And then we can obviously mix as well from our point of view. We can mix the ecosystem between different vendors. So, for instance, you've got a VMware solution in Azure. Well, we've got a VMware team with loads of engineers over there. We've got an Azure team. Oh, look, loads of engineers there. Guess what? They know each other. They talk to each other. They can figure stuff out that you wouldn't be able to get with just any old provider. You'd be thankful I'm not going to talk through this wheel. Does remind me of the old bullseye wheel, though, for anybody that's old enough to remember that. The point with this is that we have a lot of value add around all of our CSP offerings. We have the team, we have pre-sales guys. Come and talk to us. It's free. We don't charge you for pre-sales advice. We'll get on a call with you. You know, if we have to, so with the customer as well, and we can do all that as well. What I'm going to focus on, though, is I'm going to focus on the professional and managed services. To just stick it in your head at the end of this session, what you can ask us for. So you can ask us for pre-sales, anything about the programs from Microsoft you can talk to us about. We can help you with all of that. We are wizards on doing our best to keep up with what's going on in the Microsoft world. But we also add a lot of value as well that not most people don't. So services in a new black. I actually thought I'd taken this slide out because it doesn't give anything more to the presentation than I've already talked about. So I'm going to skip it. Sorry. So our professional services teams, yeah, nearly 500 projects. It's about 6 months out of date. 500 projects across Europe. We work with over 100 partners across Europe and across 16 countries as well. Our services are on the whole packaged, and I'll show you a quick slide in a second that just has them a quick overview on them as well. We offer both professional and managed services as well. So, for instance, you're starting off with Azure. What is your value proposition in terms of then managing it afterwards? Who's doing the patching? Who's making sure that it doesn't break? Have you got that skill in-house? Do you want to offer a 24/7 help desk? Probably not. So we offer that as well. And it's quite a good package, actually. I mean, it's what is it, 75 quid per month per VM, but it doesn't have to be per VM for an entire customer. What a lot of customers will do with us is they'll use the mission critical production servers, and then they'll go, right, these 3 or these 4, whatever, I want to pay you to manage them. And then I'll confirm to the customer that those have got 24/7 monitoring, proactive health checks, security management, all the rest of it. And then the rest, if they want to pay for them, great. But you know, if it's, they can split them up. So that's really good. This is what we have. This is our line card: migrations, provisioning, consultancy, project-based stuff, modern workplace assessments, deployments. We also work with some other suppliers for like Kari for Power Platform and Simplinova for Dynamics and Business Central. Again, because we there's no need for us to fill in all the gaps. But again, just ask. Chances are we've either got it, we've done it, we know somebody else that can do it. And then that also goes over to AWS as well. So we can do AWS products as well. So, but that also means we can flip from AWS to Azure. So don't forget that. Good. Right. I didn't want to talk anymore. I just want to leave you with that. Come to us. We can do whatever you need, really, kind of message. There'll be the opportunity to follow up off the back of this session with a one-to-one with me and or one of the other members of the team. If you manage with a BDM already or a CSM, they'll be involved as well. But I hope you all got something out of this session. And by all means, if you've got any questions now or after, please just ping me directly. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. So anybody got anything now?
Not for the minute.
I'm good. Thank you. That was really useful.
Okay, I really hope it was. I hope I haven't just like caved everybody's heads in for the rest of today.
I've taken notes and everything.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll send a copy of the slide deck out. I might take the blahs off some of the Microsoft slides just in case it ends up in their hands.
That was my favourite bit. I've already told people to expect them when I send them around, so you don't have to leave them in.
Right, fine. Well, look, I was determined not to make this a run-of-the-mill, here's everything, boring, which is why I've created the partner journeys and the accidental Azure stuff, because it might sound like a joke, but seriously, it's a real problem. You know, it's dead easy to fall into that trap. And I'd hate having conversations with partners where they're like, we can't make any money.